Hey guys, welcome back to the Fandom Minutes. I'm Mike,
And I'm Matt.
and today we figured we'd bring you a special episode about something that's a little near and dear to this guy's heart here. That's teachers.
Boop, boop.
Now with school starting back up, some actually started up today. Actually,
Yeah.
But with school starting back up, we figured we'd bring you some horror stories, so to speak, from teachers pertaining to their students. And some of them are about the teacher to other teachers or themselves. Just a little bit of, a little bit of humor, a little bit of horror, a little bit of everything. So we're going to give you 5 apiece for a total of 10. And then when we're done with them, we'd like you guys to rank them and let us know which one was your favorite.
So here is our top 10 weirdest teacher stories. Okay, so for teacher story 1, I'm going to do my 5, he's going to do his 5. Teacher story 1. It was September, and our school had a new principal. That later fact is important to remember. That day, I was teaching social studies. We were reading about oxen in a yoke. My students were confused between a yoke and an egg yolk. So I drew pictures on the board. There were still questions about how a yoke would work, so I decided to act it out. 2 students volunteered to come up in front of the class and get down on all fours. I stood behind them and explained how the yoke would be placed over their shoulders. Then I stood between the 2 and was demonstrating how the driver would steer and whip the animals when our new principal walked in.
Oh boy.
I froze, hand in midair. She froze. I think all of my students held their breath. Then she hurriedly said, "I'll come back later," quickly turned and exited the room. The entire class erupted in laughter the moment the door closed. "You should have seen your face," they cried. My cheeks were on fire, so I could only imagine. Great first impression. It was a story my students would still tell at the end of the year.
So it's titled The Loose Cannon. I'm a kindergarten teacher. Earlier this year, one of my students surprised me by sprinting out to the playground with his shirt raised over his head, screaming, "Feast your eyes on my nipples!"
Oh my.
Needless to say, I imagine the teacher was a little worried. That was I don't know that I could contain myself. If something like that happened, I'd have to laugh, honestly. But, yeah, it's quite interesting.
So honestly, I don't think I could handle myself either if some child ran out and said, "Feast your eyes on my nipples." That's just great. So for my next story, this is from the eyes of the teacher. For anyone who knows me, it is no surprise that my classroom is filled with colorful anchor charts. I'm a crafty girl, to say the least. So when I began my teaching journey as a kindergarten teacher, I was more than ecstatic. October brought, among other things, spider headbands hanging in the halls outside the schoolroom, greeting inhabitants as they passed by. One of the regular inhabitants of our halls was the night custodian, Mr. Todd. He would gingerly collect the fallen spiders as he made his rounds and inform me of the following day of the casualties. I would collect the spiders from him and rehang them, night after night, morning after morning, until the evening of October 24th. An unexpected autumn tornado touched down upon the small-town elementary school. The hall that once embraced students' work and smiles and laughter was reduced to half-erected walls and piles of cement blocks. And among it all stood a wall, a display of spider headbands. Not one had fallen.
I'm not sure what to say about that.
Yeah, so they had fallen all year, off and on, every night. Tornado hits, none of them fell.
That's some crazy luck. I guess you could call it luck. All right, so here comes my next story. I'm a general music teacher, and I was teaching a first grade class a folk dance. Halfway through the dance, I noticed mud all over the carpet floor. I asked who was outside on the playground in the mud. Nobody said anything. I had them all sit in a chair so I could look at the bottom of their shoes. Nothing. Well, it turned out to be poop. As one boy was dancing, he pooped his pants. The turd slid down his pant leg onto the floor. All of the kids danced through it, rubbing it into their shoes and into the carpet. FML.
So that was disturbing. I don't think I have it on my stories, but little side note here, guys. There was one where I think third grader, kindergartner, maybe somewhere in that age, went to the bathroom, went poop, picked the poop out of the toilet, took it to the classroom, and threw it at the smartboard.
Oh my gosh.
All right, for my next story, I was teaching in a school where a third grade student told me he was going to kill me. He told me that his grandpa had a gun cabinet, and he knew where he kept the key. When I told my principal about it, he said he was going to kill me. He said I hadn't built a good relationship with the student and that it was my fault. He said that I should invite the student to school on Saturday and play games. What do you think of that?
Honestly, man, I don't know how to take that one.
Yeah, I probably would have ducked the principal in the face. Like, yeah, I couldn't believe that he was like, well, I want to kill you. Like, who says that?
Man. Like, how do you...
And then says that, oh, well, it's your fault that he wants to kill you. You should have him over for games on Saturday. Doesn't that just invite him to bring a gun? Like, what?
Yeah. Oh, man. So, my next story, the truly wild escape. I had a student tell me he didn't want to be in class anymore. Smart kid. Super smart. But insanely lazy. He asked to go to the office, the nurse, anywhere else he could. Told me he wasn't going anywhere until he started passing my class. 5 minutes later, he came up holding his bleeding ear and smugly asked to go to the nurse. This boy took a tack out of my wall and pierced his own ear. What choice did I have? He won that round.
Wow. That's almost as bad as a story I actually have, and I'll tell you guys in a second, but he pierced his own ear and was like, well, I'm going to the nurse now.
That's a crafty kid.
That is a crafty kid, but also sadistic.
He's going to be getting into some trouble
in the future, probably.
Near future,
yeah.
I'm sure.
Next thing you know, he's going to cut a finger off. So though, talking about teacher stories, I've got one of my own that pretty much is close to that. I was teaching and I was at my desk grading some papers while the students were working on art projects. I was an art teacher for the middle school. And so they're working along, just doing their thing. And I hear laughter coming from the kind of the jock kids. And I'm hearing laughter coming from the table. So I automatically know something's up. They're either drawing something funny, they're being perverted, something's going on. Well, I didn't expect to get the answer that I got. So I get up and, I'm strolling around the class, and I come over, mosey way over there, and I said, so what's going on over here? What's so funny, guys? And they said, oh, we've got these metal rulers, and we just thought we'd stick them in the light socket to see who got shocked first.
What?
Yes. And I was so dumbfounded, I just stared at them and said, I couldn't help myself. I said, are you stupid? And then I had to explain to them, middle schoolers, that, and they were in 7th grade, I believe, I had to explain to them that could kill them.
And this is why kids need school.
Yeah.
Stay in school. Do not drop out.
Okay, so we had a little fun one there for you, but here's the next one. From Reddit user, I hope you like apples. I was in middle school, and a girl in my class slipped rat poison into my teacher's coffee when she was out of the room. Yeah. The teacher was rushed to the hospital pretty quickly. The teacher was rushed to the hospital pretty quickly and lived, but never came back to school. The girl was expelled after a few people in the class admitted to seeing her put the poison in. The ones that came forward were suspended for a long time for not telling anyone of the affair until then. I have no idea what happened to the girl who did it. She was only 12, so there probably wasn't much of a punishment. She was the quiet, nerdy kid, too, the last person you'd ever expect to do something like that. So yeah, poisoned her teacher.
So that kid needs prison, and those other kids are guilty by association.
Yep. And so that's kind of what the school did, was they're like, I mean, I'm proud that they did come forward and told what they, but they took quite a while, I'm guessing, to come forward and finally tell it.
Oof.
They were probably afraid that she was going to poison them, too.
I wouldn't put it past her at this point. The cursing tattler. When I taught kindergarten, I had a picture of George Bush in my class. The students knew that they could tell all of their tattles to him, and I would handle the real issues. One day, a student came to me to tattle that a student called her a name. Before she could even start, I said, "Go tell the president." She walks right over to the picture and shouts, "Elizabeth called me a mother..."
That's great that she yelled that at the president.
Top of her lungs. Elizabeth called me a mother... She went full Sam Jackson.
That's great. And I love the fact that she put a poster of the president on the wall and that the kids could tattle or tell the president, what they wanted to tell. That's actually a really cool idea. I really like that. Okay, for my last one, it's kind of short, but really messed up. So, from a former Redditor, a little girl, kindergarten age, drew a picture of herself and then colored the whole page red. When I asked why she colored everything in red, the kid said, "Well, that's what I'm going to look like when I blow myself up."
Excuse me?
Yeah, so she said,
"Get this little girl some help."
And I quote, "That's what I'm going to look like when I blow myself up." Kindergarten, so we're thinking 4 to 5. So that kind of brings me into when I read stuff like that, it makes me think of past lives. Like maybe this little girl got blown up and she's having memories from her past life. And so she's like coloring herself all in red, blown up. And is just like, that's what I'm going to look like when I get blown up.
Or maybe she just needs some help.
Or that. She probably needs both. I would say both.
Oh, goodness. All right, so my fifth and final story is titled The Dangerous Demo. I was teaching my musical theater class how to fit costumes and was using a little girl named Maddie as my model. I wasn't paying that much attention. Keep in mind, I was just working on a plush body form before class. I was giving a demo on pinning them, where to pin, and how to sew over the pins. Suddenly, the class starts screaming. Maddie collapses. Turns out I had been sticking 1.5-inch pins into this little girl the whole time. She passed out in pain and at the sight of her own blood. I was mortified. I felt so bad. And to this day, I wonder why nobody said anything. Now,
so
here's a good question.
What?
Why did she not say anything?
That's what I was going to... She's just like, well, my teacher's stabbing me. I'll accept this. This is how this works.
But why did the teacher not say anything? Why did she not be like, hey, I just stabbed this little kid 50,000 times and she said nothing. I'm sorry.
Well, she didn't notice it.
But I mean, afterwards, like she's wondering why nobody else said anything.
I think she meant the class. Like, why the class didn't tell her that she was stabbing the student.
I mean, you would think that the girl herself would say something.
What grade was this? Do we know what grade this was?
Does not say what grade.
Really depends on the grade.
Musical
I think.
Theater. I would assume
that's more high school. I would think.
More like high school.
Yeah,
potentially.
Maybe middle school, but probably high school.
So I imagine this poor kid was just like, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to get in trouble. Blah blah blah.
Probably, honestly.
Unfortunately, that's bad. That's bad.
Really sad, actually. And I wonder. I hate to say it, but I wonder what kind of reprimand that teacher got for that. Because honestly, she should have been paying attention.
Yeah.
And I know mistakes happen, but I'm just curious on what kind of reprimand that happened.
Good question.
So that was our top 10. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was fun to compile and read some of these. Some of them really scared me, and some of them were honestly pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Make sure you let us know in the comments which one was your favorite story of all time, and if you're a teacher and you've got your own horror story you'd like to throw in there, let us know. We would love to read it.
Or if you're a student and you've had a horror story happen to you, maybe even about a teacher, if you got some horror stories from school, drop in the comment section below, and we'll talk about it on the next episode and be like, yo, that's messed up.
We get enough replies, we might do a part 2 if you guys are into that.
That'd be cool.
So, in the meantime, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and let us know if there's anything else you'd like to see. Matt, you got anything else to add?
I think that's about it.
All right. Well, guys, until next time.